All right. Thanks everyone for joining. And I think we lost Stefan, but he might come back. We'll see. I'm Alan Archibald and wanted to invite Kareem to talk with us tonight. I'm co-chair of the Justice and Advocacy Team. And just a word of thanks to Nancy, our co-chair, and to Pastor Darren and Pastor Sunil for having interest in supporting this. That's greatly appreciated. So I wanted to say a little bit about Kareem. I don't want to take up too much time, but at his agency, New Boy, you can see the logo in the background there. They have a saying, don't just talk about it, be about it, right? And he truly lives that out. He's always being about it. In fact, that's why was a little late today, because he was busy being about it, dealing with some situations. But I did want to say that just a few of the things. So along with having an agency where he has mentors who are working individually with youth who are typically part of one of the systems. He has a leaders circle every Wednesday night where they have a powerful group discussion with the mentors and himself. He started Guns Down, Gloves Up boxing. He does a night of sophistication every annually to recognize and celebrate the kids. This weekend, he's taking a ski trip with kids. His kids and his wife, who has mentoring for girls, which is called Inner Beauty. Their youth were chosen to be on the panel of a forum about youth and policing. Kareem basically started the Indie Mentor Network, which is a coalition of service providers who started creating some big events so that youth would be attracted to them and then learn about the opportunities to be involved in constructive activities instead of languishing and getting themselves in trouble. That started the virtual village Zoom call, which happens every Saturday morning. And then that started Kim Smith, who was Karate Kim. It does the Young Entrepreneurs Program that came out of that, where we have youth who have about 20 new businesses by young people. And then they do a college tour to New York City. For 10 years they've been doing that. That's just a little bit, right? So Kareem is about it. So I think Kareem's with us now. So we are privileged to have you here, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I always appreciate the opportunity to learn, especially from a diverse perspective. And I'm always open and willing to, I guess, shedding a little bit more light into, the youth's minds in regards to gun violence, just violence in general. We work with kids 24 hours, 7 days a week within our New Boy mentoring program. I'm blessed to be the husband of a super dynamic young lady who also has a nonprofit organization that works with young ladies. About 85% of the young people that we work with are involved in the juvenile justice system or have either been referred to us from the Department of Child Services. So there's some dysfunction going on within the home, which most of the time is not their fault, but because of the dysfunction within the home, they're one bad decision or one, peer association away from becoming a juvenile justice referral. So all the kids know each other through social media. So even though they come from two different referral sources, our kids that in our program are all interlinked through, school or social media, the internet, or whatever the case may be. Known Alan for a number of years, has always been a big advocate, supporter of our programs here in Indianapolis. I am a transplant, so I'm not a Hoosier. I wasn't born and raised here. I'm from Harlem, New York. And I started karate when I was 6 years old. My dad, who was, he abused drugs pretty heavy. I was raised by my grandmother, but my dad was in and out of the house. My dad lived with us, but my grandmother was pretty much the primary caretaker. I appreciate my dad. I thank him any chance I get directly and indirectly for him introducing me to the martial arts, because if it wasn't for the martial arts, I would have succumbed to the streets, easy. I lived literally maybe 150 feet from the Harlem YMCA. And the Harlem YMCA was my refuge. At the YMCA, I was able to connect with not only peers, but people who care. If you've ever been a part of the YMCA, you know it's different. It's the Young Men's Christian Association, but it's different. It's different than the Boys and Girls Club. It's different than any other fitness facility. It's just a culture there. I felt welcome, and I started martial arts there when I was 6 years old. I don't want to bore you guys with the long story, but at 12 years old, a mentor came to the Harlem YMCA and started a mentoring program called Night Lights. Of course, I had a dad in my life, like I said, and my dad was he was there. Of course, that's like I said, he abused drugs. I watched him go through the whole detox process, and then he became present in my life, so to speak. So he was always there, but when he actually detoxed from drugs, he became present in my life. And he had the wherewithal to connect me with other men. He knew he couldn't do it by himself. So he connected me with my martial arts instructor. Then I met my mentor when I was 12 years old. And all those people, I was able to establish relationships within that YMCA that helped me kind of just get away. And it always gave me an excuse. So no matter what was going on in the hood where I always had an excuse. So Alan called her Karate Kim, but I was the first one. I was Karate Kareem. That's what they knew me as, Karate Kareem. Martial arts tournaments every weekend. And I was the plug. So in my neighborhood, I was the plug for the YMCA. So because I had a mentor and I'd been taking karate at the Y since the age of 6, I was able to get my friends into the YMCA. Kind of through the back door. I was able to get their registration forms, I guess, to the front of the line, because you can't just walk into the YMCA. Where I came from, you have to pay a membership fee, or you have to pay a guest pass. So as much as I love the YMCA, they're not the most welcoming organization in regards to getting kids involved, from the neighborhood. Very good family atmosphere, and I understand that the liability and so forth, and people pay to come. But yeah, we were never able to get in for free. So I was kind of like that plug. My mentor became the plug, because when he came and started a mentoring program, now the Y had to let us in because we had an excuse. Again, long story short, I turned 18 years old, and I had really messed up some opportunities in my life, because I did eventually gravitate away from I started to separate from my connection with the YMCA. I started gravitating towards the streets. And honestly, it started happening right around the age of 15 when I got my first job and I started making a little bit of money. So when I started making a little bit of money, I now became appealing to another set of friends. At first I was appealing to the academics, really strong in academics, mentoring and playing sports. But now I'm 15 years old, I'm making $250 a week because the YMCA had chosen me to be their Youth of the Year. So every year, the YMCA of Greater New York, all 5 boroughs in New York City, Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, they have a Black Achievers in Industry Award ceremony. So every year they had this big dinner down at the Hilton Hotel, downtown New York City. All the YMCAs would bring the kids down because they would honor 50 people, the top 50 executives that had positions in Fortune 500 companies. So they would bring these men and women together, they would honor them. And it was the Black Achievers in Industry Award dinner. So it was people that looked like me that were being honored. They sat up on this big dais. We were at this Hilton Hotel. We were able to dress up really nice. And all the YMCAs in the greater New York area brought 2 busloads of kids that were in their mentoring program. So those 2 busloads of kids would come down to the Hilton Hotel and for that one night, eat this real elegant dinner. I mean, just have a chance to be around things that we had never experienced in our lives before. So everybody looked forward to that. They chose one youth of the year out of all the YMCAs in Greater New York to actually sit up on the dais and be honored as the youth of the year. That was me when I was 15 years old. I was the YMCA Youth of the Year, so I got a chance to sit up on the dais. I got a chance to make a speech that night in front of all these people. I felt good. I was a star, one of the best moments in my life. And the president of ABC Sports at that time, his name was Dennis Swanson. He saw me that night. He was there because one of his executives was being honored. So ABC Sports had this big table. So every executive, every organization that was honoring an executive, they bought tables. So that's how the dinner was kind of funny. They bought tables for their company to come out and honor their executive. So tables were $1,500, $2,000 a table, might have been a little bit more, and they sponsored the youth tables. So all these people were being honored, and then the people from their companies, their colleagues from these companies would come out and honor these people. So I was chosen as a Youth of the Year. I got up. I'd always been into marketing. I didn't know what marketing was, but when I chose my speech, I got up and said, I want to be a part of marketing. When I grow up, I want to be in marketing. I had no idea what marketing was. Dennis Swanson, the president of ABC Sports, heard me that night, reached out to the YMCA and said, we want that young man to work at our TV station. I was working at ABC Sports. They wanted me to do an internship. So they gave me a mentor. My mentor's name was Kimberly Belton. He used to play for the Boston Celtics. He was a TV producer. He was producing sports on the weekends. He became my mentor. So they gave me a job, and all I would have to do is come to the building on 56th Street and Broadway, ABC Sports, and sit 3 hours after school and just learn about the business. That's all I had to do. I had no job. I just had to sit and learn about the business. ABC would match every time I got paid. They would match that amount and put it in a college fund. So they were grooming me. They were grooming me. And hopefully by the time I became a senior and I graduated and I went to college, by that time, I would be primed to become an ABC employee. So at 15, I didn't understand the opportunity. The only thing I heard was $250 a week. That's the only thing I heard, $250 a week. I never had to sign a timesheet. All I had to do was come and just watch these people. So I watch how sports shows were produced. They just showed me everything about the business. Again, my favorite day of the week was Friday when I came in and they handed me a paycheck. So again, now I'm getting paid. I'm up in Harlem and I started to appeal to a different set of youth. Now I'm dressing a little bit better. You know, my reputation is going up a little bit. So now school and academics wasn't my focus. Going to school and being acknowledged for the way I dressed was my focus. So now I had on all the cool sneakers. I had on all the cool outfits. So now all this pressure is being built up on me. Now I'm like, okay, well, I can buy the weed now. I can buy the 40 ounces of beer now. I don't have to watch people do it. You know, I can do it. And people knew that. My friends knew it. So they really kind of groomed me, and then I became that man. So next thing you know, I got into smoking. I got into drinking 40 ounces of beer. That was right around the time that Ice Cube and whole NWA thing was really popping off, and 40 ounces was the thing. So school just, it became, you know, secondary to me. Then it got to the point where I wasn't interested in school. I was only interested in going to school, picking up my friends, and coming back to the hood. Eventually, I started only going to ABC Sports on Fridays because I never had to sign a timesheet. So now instead of going every day, I'm making money, I'm living this life, I would only go to pick up my check on Friday. So I got caught. I got called into the office. I'll never forget. My dad had to come with me. The president, Dennis Swanson, my mentor, they sat me and they said, we found out what's going on. How dare you take advantage of this opportunity? I dare you, you know, with as much as we've invested in you, this is what you're doing. So again, long story short, now I had to start signing the timesheet. I couldn't leave that life that I had found. you know, that popularity I had. So I couldn't just turn it back on and go to like, now I'm signing the timesheet, I'm coming in every day. Couldn't do it. So eventually I got fired. When I got fired from ABC, I was 16 years old, and that situation disconnected me and my dad. He had so many hopes for me, so many hopes. And for me to have to bring him to this room in ABC Sports and him sit down and they tell me that this program is over for me, it really, it caused major friction in our relationship. So me and my dad wasn't as close. We weren't as close as we were, but I had the streets. I still have my friends in the streets. And I'd made so many connections then in the streets that it was okay. I didn't have my dad anymore, so I'm fine. And I almost cemented a leadership role within the streets because of me funding a lot of the things that was going on. You know, I was okay. And at that point, my life started to go downhill. I lost a lot of connections with the YMCA. People started seeing me again. I was 150 feet away from the front door of the YMCA. So now I'm hanging outside. So a lot of the people that once respected me as this, you know, leader in my community, especially amongst the teens, now they're seeing me across the street from the YMCA, hanging out, doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. Again, long story short, I'm 18 years old and I'm lost. I am lost. And my mentor, he left the YMCA and he moved to Indianapolis. I was really lost then. Because, you know, me and my dad, it was still my dad, he was still there, but we never had that relationship as we once had, that strong of a relationship as we once had. My mentor was like my outlet. So he moved to Indianapolis. Within a year, he gives me a call, says, hey, you want to move to Indianapolis? I said, no, I'm not coming to Indiana from Harlem, New York. And it was right around the time the Pacers and the Knicks were in their big basketball feud. So I definitely had an allegiance to New York. I wasn't coming to Indiana. But he said, hey, if you come with me, come out here with me to Indiana, you can work for me at the YMCA for the summer as a camp counselor. You can earn enough money to get a car and take your car back to New York. I was sold. When he said that, because we really didn't drive in New York City, especially as a teenager, you know, we didn't drive cars. We took the train or the bus, public transportation. So now I could come back to New York with a vehicle. I was going to be the man. So I came out here to Indiana. Don't want to bore you with the rest of the story, but it was it from there. Once I got exposed to a new environment, and again, I love the YMCA. So I was actually living at the YMCA. I was living at the Fall Creek YMCA on 860 West 10th Street, right before all the buildings started coming up from my IUPUI. I was living at the Y with my mentor, taking showers and everything. It's community shower, but I was able to go right downstairs, and I was a camp counselor. I became an aquatic director. They allowed me to start teaching my martial arts classes at the YMCA. So I loved Indiana. I loved it. And after about a year, my mentor said, hey, I got to go home. I said, what do you mean you got to go home? He said, I got to leave. I got to go back to New York. I said, okay, well, I'm coming with you. It was nice, but I'll go with you. He said, no, I don't think you should leave. So I think you've made some pretty good connections out here. I think this could change your life. And at the time I was like, no, I'm done. I'm not coming back to New York. I mean, I'm not leaving Indiana, and I'm not staying in Indiana. You're going back to New York. I'm coming back. So my mentor said he wasn't taking me back. I called my dad. I didn't tell you that when I left and I got the plane ticket from my mentor, I cursed my dad out and called him all kind of names, all kind of 4-letter words. I don't need you no more. I'm on my way to Indiana. I'm going to live my life. So now I got to eat crow and call my dad back and say, hey, can I have my room back? He said, no. He said, no. He said, no, what are you coming back here for? I'll never forget our conversation. He said, what are you coming back here for? I said, I'm your son. How are you going to leave me in Indiana? So we went through that whole thing. But, you know, to this day, I think my dad was the best decision. It was the best example of tough love I've ever had in my life.
Kareem,
yes.
We could hear in that both the setup for how you got pulled into the streets. Obviously, you've kind of set that up, and then also how you kind of made your way, angling here and there, made your way to something more productive.
Yes.
So, and I think, I guess that kind of sets us up for hearing, how the youth that you're currently working with, how they're pulled into the streets similarly, And then maybe to follow up that, you also, as you're, some of the parts of your story I've heard before and some not, like, I hear Night of Sophistication, that you had that previewed, with your being honored on the dais for the YMCA's, right? I mean, how that resonates. So tell us partly about, how you see the youth you're currently working with get pulled into the streets, and then, how you see yourself connecting with them in positive ways, like some of the things that happened to you, like both parts of the story.
Okay. Keep me on task, Alan, because I will go off on a tangent. So thank you for reeling me back in. You've asked me maybe 3 or 4 questions in the last statement, so I'll try to answer them.
Yeah.
Kids right now, I know the kids we work with, they're looking for validation. That's number one. They want to be validated. The streets give them that validation. A lot of the kids that we work with have been pulled into, very early in their lives, the school or prison pipeline. And that's a very real thing. School or prison pipeline is very real. A lot of kids that come to our program have been suspended from school and expelled at a very early age. I just went to a hearing at Warren where they have an alternative to expulsion program, and it was a 5th grader expelled. 5th grade. How do you expel a kid in 5th grade? He didn't hurt anybody. He brought a knife to school. He was up for expulsion in 5th grade. So a lot of the young men that we get in our program, they've been suspended or they've been expelled, or they've had some interruption in their academic learning process. Once that interruption happens, with most of the kids we work with not coming from 2-parent homes and parents are just trying to make it, they don't have an academic advisor in the home. They don't have a tutor in the home. So they don't have anybody that can kind of stand in that gap. So when they're suspended from school for 2 weeks, who comes and helps them stay on track? Who is that person that keeps them comfortable in that academic environment? So now they're suspended from school. They're home alone. Mom still has to go to work. Dad still has to go to work. Auntie and grandma still has to go to work. And just before transparency, and Dwayne comes to a lot of our leader circles that Alan talked about every Wednesday. If I have 15, 20 kids in the circle, 19 are not going home to dad. This is 19 are not going home to dad. They're going home to mom. They're going home to auntie. They're going home to grandma. So there's no validation within the home, and then they get pulled into the school or prison pipeline. So now they have a decision to make. So now I go to school. I've missed 2 or 3 weeks of school. I've missed a month of school. Now I'm sitting in class. I'm scared for the teacher to call on me, because if this teacher calls on me, either I'm going to look stupid, which I'm not going to do now, especially in the age of social media. I do not want to look stupid in front of my friends, and I especially don't want to look stupid in front of this young lady that I like, that doesn't even know I like her, but now I have a decision to make. So you know what? I'm going to clown. I'm going to clown, because I know if I clown in school, they'll kick me out. And I would rather be kicked out of class for being a clown rather than be put on Front Street and exposed as being stupid. So a lot of the kids, or unintelligent, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of kids, that gets them, that starts them on that path. They start getting all these discipline referrals in school. Next, they're out of school. They're spending all this free time, unsupervised free time at home. Then they have some friends that have been expelled or suspended from school. They start connecting together. You got social media. You get the influence of the music right now. And it's a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm. And if there's no validation in the home, that's one thing that I was looking for. Well, even though I had validation from my dad, I had validation from my mentor, I had validation from my karate instructor, it was something about that validation from the streets that really appealed to me. It was something about that validation from my friends and my peer circle that really appealed to me. And that's what those kids are looking for. Does that answer one part of the question, Alan?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe then before we get to like some more of the things that you're doing to connect them in a positive way. How do you see guns getting introduced there, and why does the kid think they need to have a gun?
Wow. If you well, right now I know hip hop music is probably the most popular genre of music that we have in our country today. But there's an underground culture that you guys maybe haven't heard of called drill music. Now, drill music is a little different than hip hop music. Drill music started in Chicago. That whole Chief Keef, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Chief Keef, that Chief Keef era. And drill music, the kids call it murder music. That is becoming right now the #1 genre of music amongst young people, let's say ages 12 to 25, 26. And that music, drill music, is strictly catered towards killing, gun violence, just unadulterated murder. The kids call it spinning right now. They call it spinning on their ops. Spinning pretty much means we're going to get in the car and we're going to kill somebody. We're going to get in the car and we're going to get some payback for something that happened to somebody in our gang. So that's, I mean, they listen to that music 24/7. It's such an aggressive form of music. So you take that music and you add the videos to it, the visuals, and if you just look it up, you can look it up, the visuals, it's all about guns, it's about the violence, it's real boisterous, and it really validates these kids' mindsets. Like that music really validates the kid and makes a kid feel powerful before he even touches a gun. The music just makes you feel really aggressive, gets them real pumped up. I'm not an expert on adolescent brain development, but I know it affects their brains in a way that can definitely manipulate and direct their behavior and their thought process. So drill music, you add that to the mix with social media, and then the people that are creating this drill music, when the kids look at the visuals, all they see is this ice, these diamonds, these designer clothes, these fast cars. So now they're associating drill music with success, with riches, because that is the images that they're seeing on social media. And the guns that are being shown in these videos are not the mom and pop guns that we know. It's no longer about a 45 or 9mm or a 22. No, these kids are putting 30, 50, and 100 round clips on the guns. 30, 50, and 100 round clips on the guns. Now they're even putting drums on the guns. So these drums have been created where you can put a drum now on a 9mm gun. So which was once a pow, pow, pow situation, now it's a pop, 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 where they don't have to aim anymore. They just spray. And in these videos, if you watch them along with the music, it just makes that whole culture look so cool, because now I have power. You've taken away my academics from me. My dad is gone. You know, I'm not getting validation in any other part of my life. But when I have this gun and I'm listening to this music, I can become famous, or I can become popular, or as they call it, they're clout chasing within their peer circles. And right now, amongst our peers, they're catching bodies. I mean, amongst their peers, they're catching bodies. They're catching bodies. So, and you got to look at it, if you take it back, it's like if, you know, they don't have any hope. Nobody's giving them hope. Nobody's giving them a reason to live. You know, dad is gone. You know, mom, you know, can raise a son, but there's so much influence mom can have, you know, on a young man, especially a young man growing up in today's society. You know, they're not establishing those connections, those relationships in school. They're not establishing those relationships at YMCAs or Boys and Girls Clubs. So the relationships that they're establishing are those relationships on social media and those relationships with those peers in the hood. And unfortunately, you know, that starts them really clicking up. So they start clicking up in these gangs. They start clicking up in these families, they call it. And that's when beef starts. And the kids don't handle their beefs or their disagreements anymore with their hands. It's all about the gun. It's all about the gun. I can keep going, Alan, but I don't want to divert off. I want to kind of keep it focused. So you keep me focused.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think sometimes then there's also, or I'm understanding that sometimes there's also kind of peripheral influence too, like someone who may not intend to kind of, maybe to hang on the side, but not really to get involved in the guns, then sometimes kind of get sucked into that. Is that still something that's very big, or is that more minor?
Yeah, that's huge. Like, we work with a lot of young men that are not in the system, but they are intrigued and they are attracted to the young men who are in the system. Because again, those young men are portraying the same image as those people that they idolize in these videos. So they're dressing like them, they're talking like them. So if we get a young man that's not in the system and he commingles with a young man that's in the system and he's talking that talk, he's walking that walk, I've been to jail and that can attract this young man's attention who's not in the system. Now he wants to be like that. So if you don't supervise that or facilitate that in a proper way, now this young man, they can connect on social media. So next thing you know, they just connect. Let me get your Instagram. So I just come and hang out at your house. I just want to come and hang out on your block. I know you're down with this program. I met you through, this person over here, but you don't know what that young man is into. So you're over there, and stealing cars is a huge thing right now in Indianapolis. So next thing you know, you're over there. A friend or an associate rolls up in the car and you jump in. Now, you don't know what's getting ready to happen, but you just jump in and you're really feeling big now. You're feeling a part of the crew. You're feeling like you're getting some clout because now you're a part of this group. Like when I was coming up, I told you, I was never a part of that crowd until I started making some money. When I started making some money, that was my end. That was my end. I didn't need to be recruited. I wanted to be in prior to making money. So now that I have money, my way in was to show them that I would buy the weed. I would buy whatever I needed to buy to be accepted. I'm going to buy. Now, these young men, in order for them to be accepted, all they got to do is roll. You want to roll? Yep, I'm rolling. And now you're rolling in this car. More often than not, in this car, there's going to be some drugs. There's going to be some guns. Next thing you know, when those red and blue lights come behind you for whatever reason, now you're in a high-speed chase. You've never been in trouble a day in your life. But just by that having that mindset of I want to clout chase, I want to be a part of that crowd. Now you're in this car, and these kids you see it every day on our news, especially in Indianapolis. They're not stopping for the cops anymore. If you listen to their music, it's called doing the dash. They're doing the dash. So whatever's on the dash of the car, that's what they're trying to do. So when those cops come, they're pressing on that gas, and they call it doing the dash. We're doing the dash, bro. We ain't stopping. And I had a young man call me a few months ago. He got caught in a situation, went to a party. Some guys left the party. He's feeling real big and mighty. He had never been in that kind of environment. He left the party with his friend, who he thought was his friend. They went out and they stole a car. The cops get behind the car, and the kid thought that they were going to stop. The dude told him, I'm not stopping. Now, because he knew that kid wasn't really a part of that life, he called himself looking out for the kid. He said, look, take your shoes off. When I stop at this light, jump out and run. He asked him, why was he taking his shoes off? He said, take your shoes off. You can run fast with your shoes off. So he told him to take his shoes off. He stopped the car, and that kid jumped out. And of course, when he stopped the car, he didn't stop. He didn't come to a full stop. So this kid pretty much jumped out of a moving car. He runs down the alley. He's barefoot because he lost his shoes. He's calling me on his cell phone, asking me to come get him. He doesn't know where he's at. He's crying. This is a kid who ain't never been in trouble in his life. He's 13 years old, somewhere on 16th and Tibbs over there. And I'm trying to get some landmarks to find out where he is. He, describes where he is, and that situation ended. But yeah, just the lure of those streets. I just want to be involved. Yeah, that's sometimes an intended consequence and sometimes an unintended consequence.
Yeah, so that's a part of it too. So then, yeah, so another, if you're saying connection before correction, and so tell us about the connections, how you're connecting and reaching these kids who've headed off in that direction.
Yeah, so you bring up connection before correction. That's a philosophy that we use within our program, that any time I get a chance to talk to any adults that work with kids, either they incorporate that philosophy or I get a chance to educate them on that philosophy. When we get young people that are referred to our program, initially they're very apprehensive. They don't want to mentor. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. And mind you, it's court ordered. So 85% of the kids that come to our program are court ordered. So they have to come. So again, that defiance and that apprehension to authority, they don't want to come because it's court ordered. So they come in with an apprehension of having a mentor. They come in thinking that we're going to take them away from, we're going to take their freedom away. They're not going to be able to hang with their friends. And we have a lot of sports-based programs because we use sports to make that connection with them. And if I got a kid that got referred to our program, it could be something as egregious as attempted murder, or maybe he was truant from school. I'm going to attempt to make a connection with him first before I address anything that I saw on his referral. I don't care about the crime he committed. I don't care what happened. I don't care what kind of pictures being painted on him with this piece of paper. It's my job to make this connection with this young man. If I can make it through basketball, if I can make the connection through martial arts, if I can make the connection through boxing, if I can make the connection by offering him a meal, you'd be surprised how much kids will talk if you take them to McDonald's and get them a large sweet tea, a double cheeseburger, and some small fries. You'd be surprised how much they'll start talking. So our philosophy is to make the connection with them first. Sometimes that connection could take a day. Sometimes it might take a couple of weeks. Once I make that connection with the young man, and as the streets validate him, I'm also going to validate him. So if he thinks he's the toughest dude in the neighborhood, yeah, I heard you was the toughest dude in the neighborhood. If he think he has the biggest gun, yeah, I heard you has the biggest gun. I'm going to validate him all day long. I want him to feel comfortable with me. Once he starts to feel comfortable, then I can start doing the rewiring of the thought process. Then the correction starts. Some people, I think, make the mistake of not making the connection with the kids, and they go automatically to the correction. And that's when you see the defiance. That's when you see just a lack of compliance. That's when you see the verbal aggression. Because I don't have a dad. My mom doesn't even correct me. Who are you to talk to me? So the correction piece is so huge. And again, for me, it's not verbal. It is activity based. We're taking some kids skiing. Some kids that are going skiing with us have been a part of our program for 6 months to a year. They deserve this ski trip. They have earned this ski trip. Then we're taking a few young men that just came into our program last week. They just got out of juvenile detention. They have not earned this trip at all. But I know the conversation I can have with them on the ski slopes or on that, what do you call that thing you sit on? It takes you to the top of the hill.
Lift.
Yes, the conversation I can have with them on that lift will resonate so much more than us having that conversation here on 30th and Post Road or 30th and Emerson or 25th and Keystone. So I want to get them out of their environment. I want to put them in a situation, or I want to expose them to something different. Same conversation, different environment, affects them in a different way. So again, we're using the ski trip to make the connection. So I think that connection before correction philosophy, it's worked for us. It's something that as we learn a little bit more about adolescent brain development, it starts to make a little more sense to us of why the kids think that way. And it helps us. It helps us with the connection before correction philosophy, because we know how they think. We're starting to learn a little bit more how they think, so we don't take things personal. And then when you factor in the trauma that these kids have gone through before they get to you, sometimes we see the surface issue and we want to judge a kid off of that decision that he made, or off that picture we saw on TV, or that article we read, and wow, that's such a bad kid. Why would they do that? We have to take a step back. If we're wanting to learn about these kids and we're wanting to make change, or be a part of change, let's not say make change. If we want to be a part of change, I think we have to step back and be willing to go under that surface issue and get to the root cause of those decisions. Some people don't want to do it. Some people just think, you know what, the kid shouldn't be carrying guns, shouldn't be out here killing people. And I agree, he shouldn't, but he wasn't born with that gun in his hand. And he or she was conditioned. Their brain was conditioned to act in a certain way. And if we can make that connection and start to unpack some of that trauma, it won't justify their actions, but it'll give you a little bit more insight into the behaviors and why they're involved in that type of situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you just a little bit more on that, and then maybe we'll open it up to people go to kind of Q&A, questions people might have. But what I think I've noticed is recently, since the first of the year in my interaction or my observation, you're getting a lot more disclosure about people's stories. And I don't know if that's accurate, that you're getting a lot more that, but whether you are or you aren't, what factors or what things do you think are contributing to sort of this opening up and sharing their story?
I think a lot of it has to do with I heard a couple of people allude to it when they were doing the introductions, where they talked about an increased focus on intentional focus on mental health. I think in our mentoring program, I know we're trying to break that stigma of having a therapist, meaning that you're crazy. A lot of kids that we work with in our program have therapists. But there's been such a negative stigma attached to therapy that kids are so apprehensive to it, because they don't want to be pulled out of class to go meet with their therapist. And you'll have a teacher that will say that, hey, so-and-so, your therapist is here. Or the therapist will come to the door and he make it like it's a real big issue. And right then and there, you isolate the kid. So now the kid doesn't want to be involved in therapy at all. So that negative stigma, I think, starts early. And in our program, what we try to do is we meet the kids where they are. So I'm going to come down to the kids level and then try to bring them up with me. When I was coming up, the philosophy was meet them halfway, meet me halfway. With these kids, it's not about meeting them halfway anymore. We got to come down to their level. And what I mean by coming down to their level is I listen to the same music they listen to, not because I love it, because I do it because I want to understand them. I want to dress like them. My dress is intentional. I call it kids, it's different faces for different places. So, of course, I have this way that I dress because I'm from Harlem, New York, but it's very intentional. It's very intentional. When I started going to church, I didn't go to church because I had this full-fledged or this total belief in Jesus and I wanted to be saved. I went because the preacher dressed really cool and I could relate to him. Like, he dressed cool. He had on the latest Jordans. He kind of talked my talk. Then I started to get into the word. Then as he started to relate the word to my life, I felt that connection. So I come down to these kids' level, and I am them. I was there. I know that it hurts, and I tell the kids all the time, one, it's not your fault. Because our kids not only dealing with their trauma, they're dealing with great-grandma trauma, grandma's trauma, mommy's trauma, daddy's trauma. They're dealing with so much, and it's generational. And some point in time, you got to break the curse. At some point in time, you got to break the curse. So again, I validate them. And I think this push on mental health, where you have some of these athletes that are coming out saying it's okay to not be okay. I think it's kind of breaking that stigma with our young people, where they don't mind talking. And I talk to kids all the time. Therapy is just talking. It's just talking. You make a connection with someone, you feel comfortable, that person creates a safe space, they'll talk. You can be 25 years old, you can be 75. They just want to feel comfortable around you and they want to feel safe. I have a lot of people that says, well, the kids need to be connected with a therapist that looks like them. So when you got Black and brown kids, we need to have a Black therapist and someone that looks like them. There's some credence to that. I agree with that. But I also have people that get on our Saturday call and they hear you talk, Alan. And they hear you create that safe space. They hear you kind of having that nurturing kind of voice. And I've had parents that say, man, I wish that Alan could be my kid's therapist. They've only met you via Zoom. So yes, I do agree that kids should see people that look like them, but I don't think that's the only answer. And I think this has been, for us, that Zoom call has been such a safe space for some kids on Saturday, and everybody that comes on that call creates this nurturing environment, and it just becomes contagious, and they start talking. I mean, you've been on our call, and they start crying, and they start unpacking this trauma. And they can see people's faces in the background of the Zoom shaking their head, and they can see people crying, and it makes them want to talk even more. They don't get that from a therapist, at a school. The therapist is, taught not to show emotion. You want to lean in and make sure the kid understands you're listening to them. And you want to use all those nonverbal kind of cues, but it's something about the Zoom calls where they let their guards down a little bit. Everybody, it's like they can let their guards down a little bit, and the kids gravitate towards that. So I know for us in our program, that is what works a little bit more. That unconventional approach, that connection before correction. I don't care what you did, but I do care about where you're going in your life. And after you have recognized that, and I've recognized and I've validated, yes, you've been through trauma. Yes, you've had all these things that have happened to you in your life. I get it. I totally understand that. Once we recognize that, now it's up to you to make that decision of how you want to move forward. Now, once we get there, and I think we can't just tell them, we got to be able to walk alongside them. It's one thing to tell them, it's a whole nother thing to walk alongside them. It's one thing for them to hear Alan Archibald on the Zoom call. It's a whole nother thing to see Alan write his phone number in the chat box and say, call me. Well, it's another thing for me to reach out to the young man and say, hey, Alan, Alan Archibald from our Zoom call on Saturday Virtual Village, he called to check on you. That's a whole nother level. It's one thing to be trauma informed. Everybody's trauma informed, but can you be trauma responsive? So when you become trauma informed, and now when you see the trauma, how do you respond to it? Do you run away from it? Or do you run to it? So I don't know if that answered your question, Alan.
I think so. I think that's definitely on point. So does anyone have things you'd like to ask from what you've heard?
Nothing is off limits.
Okay. You were talking about the minister, and this is a church group. What roles are there for churches in this process?
That's my question.
To come from behind the pulpit, to come out of the church doors and go to where the kids are, and meet them where they're at. And I don't know what that means for respective church, but find that mentoring program. And when I say mentoring program, I'm not talking about the Big Brothers, Big Sisters program. I know they do great work. I'm talking about the program that's dealing with kids that are tearing our city up. Find that program. I had a guy that called me about a year ago. He was a white guy. He said, hey, I saw your story on the news, guns down, gloves up. He said, I'm a middle-aged white man. I don't know how to help. I don't know where these kids are coming from, but I do want to help. Can you please tell me how? I just said, come. And we had and I'm paraphrasing, but we had maybe about a 30-minute conversation. And I said, just come. He came to one of our Wednesday circles, and he still comes. And not only does he come, he sponsors food. He'll listen to the kids, and he'll start communicating with them during in our circle. And to a lot of our kids, unfortunately, a white male is an authoritative figure to them, period. A white male represents the police, it represents the teacher, the dean, the principal. It just represents an authoritative figure. Once you come out and you come to their level, you kind of debunk that myth. You kind of take that title off, and our circles are very raw. They're very real. We don't change up whoever comes. And I think the kids appreciate that because they don't feel judged. And, that guy that came in, not only did he come to our circles, Alan talked about our night sophistications, one of our events that we have every year where the kids dress up, they get acknowledged for their participation in the program. Their parents are awarded that night. And the guy came with his wife and he spoke. So they get a chance to see him in their environment. So I think that can help. That's the long answer to your question. Sometimes just coming to, linking up with a program, and not only New Boy, there's other programs around the city that works with kids who I would call, high risk, kids that are engaged in these high risk behaviors. Just come. And if you're really passionate about change and helping, if you come to one of those programs, you'll understand your role pretty quickly. It's not something that you'll say, well, what am I doing here? No, if you're passionate about change, you'll sit and you'll say, okay, I know what I need to do. Does that answer it, Mr. Pike, Gary Pike? Okay, thank you for the question.
And I would just say, if you the entry level or the place to dip your toe in the water could be the Zoom call on Saturday too. You just get a little flavor of it. Actually, a big flavor of it. I mean, it's it, but that's great. What else would people like to comment about or ask? Is there something that a congregation, maybe more than a person, individuals, yes, but a congregation or a group has done or might do that would be engaging in the process?
One thing my church did, I remember the pastor, he organized a youth basketball tournament. Again, basketball is pretty popular amongst young people these days. He hosted a tournament. He paid for the trophies, paid for the food, paid for the jerseys, and invited 4 teams to participate in the tournament. So we were able to get 40 young men, from these programs, from different sides of town that were able to come together. And instead of us hiring referees or having to hire referees or people to do the table and people to run the concession stand, the congregation ran it. So now they had a chance to establish these relationships with these kids in a real informal environment where you're giving this kid. And another cool thing about it was when the kids came to buy some of the snacks, they were free. So the kid came up, and they didn't tell, the congregation didn't say it was free. They let the kids come up and the kids had their money, but they would give them the snacks for free, which allowed them a bridge to open up a conversation. Hey, what's the name of your team? Great game. What's your name? It just put them in a space, a comfortable space to meet new people, but to also see that, everybody that doesn't look like them is not against them. Because some of our kids, unfortunately, that's what they think. If you're out and you see kids, it's crazy that, we took some kids to a Kentucky State University basketball game pre-COVID. And we took all of our kids, our probation kids, up to Kentucky State University. And after the game was over, and even during the game, you couldn't tell the Kentucky State students from the kids we brought. You know, pants were sagging, hats were tilted to the side, they had their little jewelry on. But we told the kids the difference between them and you are they're at college. You know, they're going to their dorm rooms after this. They're going to a college party after this. They look just like you. And I say that to say, sometimes when you're out and you see a kid that maybe you normally might not have a conversation with or speak to him. Hey, how you doing, young man? You know, good day, speak. There will never be change without uncomfortability. So in order for there to be change, we're gonna have to get a little uncomfortable. And it can't just be uncomfortability on Zoom calls. It's gonna have to be a real uncomfortability. So see a kid at a supermarket, gas station, wherever. Hey, how you doing? I'm not saying go up to him and have a conversation and say, hey, why are your pants so low? Pull your pants up. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But just speaking. Hey, how you doing, young man? You know, you might not like his pants. Hey, those are some nice jeans. Those are some pretty cool looking jeans. It might not do anything for you that day, but it might do wonders for that young man tomorrow or that young lady tomorrow. It just eases his anxiety sometimes, because sometimes our kids see people in different environments that look different from them and they get real anxious. They get real guarded. Imagine us going skiing. We're going to Perfect Slopes North. We got 2 15-passenger vans of kids, about 25 kids going up to Perfect Slopes North. And it's a ski lodge. So we go into the ski lodge, we got to get our skis. These kids ain't never been on skis before. If you can imagine the level of uncomfortability they have. But by the end of the day, man, they're skiing with some of the kids up there. They're having fun. You know, we get adults that come up to us and compliment our group all the time. And we use that. To let them know, hey, it's really, you know, sometimes I guess you just got to debunk that myth sometimes and put the kids in uncomfortable situations also. So hope that.
All right. Yeah, that gives some ideas and thoughts. And Pastor Darren put a couple notes in the chat, just in case people are not tracking with the chat, about how, you know, we have collaboration and partnership with the Martin Luther King Center right across the park. They're very much engaged with the same kind of youth and families in kind of a place-based arrangement, of course, and we've had a long-standing relationship with them. So there's opportunities for people to do that, as well as we have a partnership with East 10th Street United Methodist, not the congregation anymore, but they have a children and youth center. It's also a place-based kind of ministry that's very much glue around where the John Bonner Center is, if people know that area. So there's a couple places that we as a congregation are already involved, as well as some of those. I see Dwayne's got a hand up, so.
My bad, Alan. I wanted to see if Kareem could touch on, because, and thanks again for all information, Kareem, as always, well done. Touch on how emotional draining it is, how real tough this is. You know, that literally you've lost kids that have gotten killed, gotten shot, and how much that it plays a part through that adversity where the kids actually even bond even more towards your program because you still ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up, Dwayne. That's a tough part of working with kids who are involved in those real high-risk behaviors, especially when you're talking about gun violence, being that's become so normal for the kids. Kids carrying guns today it's very normal. And I can tell you, we don't have a problem in Indianapolis where kids are going around shooting random people. You know, these shootings that you hear about, these are targeted. You know, so they're not just going around saying, oh, let's go downtown and rob some people. These shootings are targeted. And unfortunately, you get a lot of innocent bystanders. And there are some, you know, you hear some, you know, you hear some of the things that happen in regards to gun violence that, you know, those people weren't involved in that life. And there's some random things that kind of happen. So I'm not saying that, but most of the time, these kids are carrying guns for perceived protection from each other. Kids don't feel that they can walk around in their neighborhoods or even go to school without a gun, you know, and I love having those conversations with them because we get a chance to talk about, you know, who they're associated with, the social media beef and conversations that go on back and forth. But it's very real because we can be sitting with a young man on a Monday, he could be gone on a Wednesday. And one thing we do is we don't run from that. We actually want the kids to experience what that's like. And we had a young man who was shot in his head a couple of months ago, 14 years old. He decided he was going to take a gun from another young man. So the young man that he tried to take the gun from got the drop on him and shot him in his head. He was 14 years old. And he had just been in our program about a week before that. So the kids knew him. He played basketball with the kids every Monday. So we wanted to make it real for those kids. So one of our Wednesday sessions, we went down to the hospital. And we went to Eskenazi Hospital first. It was intentional. He was 14, but we went in front of Eskenazi first. And we waited for, we got in our circle, and I waited for a doctor to come out, or somebody I knew was affiliated with the hospital. And I said, hey, we're here to see a 14-year-old young man. He's a gunshot victim. They said, no, oh, how old is he? I said, 14. I said, no, he's not here. He's at the Children's Hospital. And I said, can you say that again, ma'am? If he's 14, he's at the Children's Hospital. Because I wanted them to understand this young man has been shot in his head. He's 14. He's at the Children's Hospital. You guys are children. You guys are children. He's at the Children's Hospital. So we walked, you know, to the Children's Hospital. And let me tell you the sad part about that is Alan talked about the night of sophistication. This young man was a part of our night of sophistication, which is a ceremony that we use once a year to honor these young people. We dress them up. We get a 24-passenger Hummer limousine. We pick them up. We drive them around the city for a couple of hours. We take them in front of the juvenile center. We have them get out. They got their white shirts on with the black vest with the bow ties. They take pictures in front of juvenile. We take them to the Department of Child Services. They take pictures in front of there. Just so they know that you can transcend whatever your past says. I mean, your past doesn't dictate your future. Some of them have spent the night at DCS. Some of those kids have spent weeks and months in the juvenile center, but here you are jumping out of a 24-passenger limousine, taking pictures, just looking real nice. So we do that, and it's intentional. And they come back to the ceremony and they're honored. They're not honored for anything except being out. If you're not locked up, you're going to be honored that night. If you're a part of the New Way program, you're going to get an award that night. And we want to bring your families because we want mom and dad, whoever, to see you. They don't have to come to, they come to probation meetings. They come to court hearings. They come to DCS meetings, school expulsion hearings. We want them to come and see you be honored. We want them to applaud. So we put them on a pedestal that night. This is one mom who had never seen. We called her and said, hey, mom, just making sure you're coming out to the ceremony. She said, no, I'm not coming out to the ceremony. And we buy every piece of the outfit except the pants. We asked mom to buy the pants. We ask every mom because we want them to take their kids. We want the families to feel a part of the process. So you know how I know how it felt to take my kid out to go shopping for prom. That was great. It was almost like a rite of passage, you know. But I'm like, hey, this felt good. It was a bonding moment. So we wanted them. Some of these kids will never graduate high school. Some of these kids will never go to prom. Most of them, to be honest, will never go. So that part of our program is intentional. And we asked mom, because he didn't have his pants yet. We had just finished our final practice. So we called and said, mom, you know, we have this event coming up. Want to see if you were able to get, his name was Timothy. Want to see if you were able to get Timothy his pants. Mom said, no, this is you guys' event. You guys need to buy his pants. And I'm telling you a conversation I had directly with her. You guys need to buy his pants. Okay, Mom, I understand, but we're buying the vest, the bow tie, the shirt. We even got him a pair of shoes. We really would appreciate it. And we have a place you can go. The pants are $9.99, Shoppers World right here on 38th Street. There's one on Pendleton Pike. Like I said, I have to work that day, and this is your program. You guys buy it. So, Mom, you're not coming to the program? I will not. I have to work that day. My right hand, I said, Mom, if you can talk to your supervisor, if there's any way you can get off, I understand the work piece. We will pay you, whatever your hourly rate is, we will pay you to be there for this young man. Because this young man, he didn't totally buy into the concept. But we knew if he could come that night and be honored and be awarded, that would be just another way for us to show him a different side of life, because a lot of these young men have never been acknowledged for anything positive. So this is a huge night for us. So we really wanted Mom to be there. Mom said, no, not coming. She said, it's not about the money. Okay, I won't be there. Anyway, long story short, that was the young man who we went to see in the hospital, 14 years old. He was the one that got shot in his head. So now imagine this. Mom is looking at us from his, I think that he was on the 6th floor. Mom knew the conversation her and I had 4 months prior to us being there. So she's upstairs. She don't want to come down because she sees about 25 kids downstairs looking, because they weren't allowing us in because of COVID. So she's looking. She sent her sister downstairs. So the aunt comes down. The aunt says, hey, I'm so glad you guys are here. Yeah, he's upstairs. I was looking for the mom. And it was so many young men, Mom had to come down. She eventually came down. And Mom said, I love my son. She stood in that circle. I was there for my son. My son was my best friend. You're lying. That's not true, Mom. I didn't say that. That wasn't the right place. I wasn't going to put Mom on the spot. It wasn't a place where I want to hold her accountable, but it hurt me because I knew. There was 4 days a week that we had that mom could have came out to acknowledge. We had basketball leagues, a great basketball player. We had our Wednesday leader circle. He was in our boxing program, and he had the nice sophisticated. We had never seen Mom. I never met Mom a day in my life, and he had been in our program for 9 months. I never met her a day in my life. And you're going to come down here and do that? I felt it was totally disrespectful. But then I said, well, Mom, what are the chances? Because now we still had to make sure that we reinforced while we were there to these young men. Mom said, honest with you right now, the only way my son is going to live, the doctor said they're going to have to saw his head open to release the pressure from his brain, because he got shot in his head and the bullet was still there. And she told that to the kids, and I was glad she told that to the kids, because I want these young men to know this is real stuff y'all are dealing with. And there's nowhere in the world a 14-year-old kid should be in a hospital fighting for his life because he got shot in his head trying to steal somebody else's gun. But his peers, the ones that were at the hospital, they engaged in the same kind of behavior. The same kind of behavior. You guys heard about those young people that stole that car in Lawrence Township about 6 months ago, went on that high-speed chase for 18 minutes. I think it ended in Lebanon, and they crashed into that tree. It was 6 kids. 4 of them died, ages of 12 to 15. 4 of them died. 2 of them lived. One of the young men was a part of our program. They stole a car. Again, clout chasing. One kid steals a car. He goes and picks up his girlfriend. The girlfriend's little brother is at the house. Can I go? Yep, you jump in the back seat. He calls another friend. They go pick him up. And then the other friend allowed his 2 siblings to go. It started right here on Sunnyside and Pendleton Pike. It took them 18 minutes to go up 65 North to Lebanon. And if you saw the tree that they hit, and it was a Kia Soul, a very compact vehicle, 6 of them, and they crashed head on into that tree. And you could see the blood on the tree, and you'd know what happened to those kids. That's another kid who was in that car. His mom is a stripper. God bless her. I mean, God bless her. You make your money the way you make your money. I'm not here to judge her. But I know, never met her a day in her life. Never met her a day in her life in regards to her son being involved in our program. So to lose young men like this, and for my wife to lose young ladies like this, it's real, which puts the battery in my back. I don't know any other way to talk to them except to be as real as possible with them, but to also expose them to the other side of life. There's another side. There's another side. So that's where the skiing comes in. That's where what we call our transformational travel comes in, where we took the kids of Philadelphia and New York with myself, Mr. Dwayne, and Alan. That's why we're planning this trip to go to California and Las Vegas, July 20th through the 24th. And we'll put some of those kids on a plane that have never been on a plane before, because we want to just expose them to something else. Because I wouldn't be in Indiana if I didn't get exposed to something else. If my mentor, and he set me up, he knew I was never coming back to New York. He set me up, and I'm glad he set me up. I'm glad he set me up. So that's all we're trying to do every day when we work with these kids. I'm trying to set you up. And I'm trying to set you up because we know, you know, what they're headed for if they keep on engaging in their behaviors that they're engaging in. But I know it takes a community, it takes a village, it takes collaboration, and we have no problem putting them in uncomfortable situations because we know there's greatness in uncomfortability.
Well, Kareem, thank you so much.
Oh man, my pleasure, my pleasure. I hope you guys didn't feel like this was a waste of time. Sometimes I do get off on these tangents, and I hope I gave you a little bit of insight to it. It's so much more, you know, to unpack. It's so much more. And like Alan said, we have a Saturday virtual village call. We'd love for you guys to get on every Saturday. We tackle some of these issues with the kids, with adults. It is a national call. So we have the Philly Mentor Network on the call. We have the New York Mentor Network on, and we unpack a lot of this. And the beauty about it is you don't hear my voice or any adult's voice for the whole call. These kids start to share, and they start to unpack, and they start to understand that it's okay. You know, we understand. I might not look like you, I might not have come from where you come from, but I understand, and how can I help? And one way you help is by clicking on that link on Saturday and providing them with an audience. No. A lot of these kids just heard.
I'm gonna take time for what Eric. You still got a question there?
I have a question.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
just applause.
All right. Actually, let's. I'll stay on for a few more minutes. Kareem, probably for a couple more minutes.
Sure.
We usually go till 8,
Okay.
and so we'll kind of conclude. So we're not going on and on. But if a couple people want to stay tuned a little bit, that's fine. I will, if you are interested in, Mary McDonald says, not a waste of time, exclamation points. Yes, definitely. If you would like to join in on the Zoom call, I will give you the number right now if you want to jot it down. Yeah. It's 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. The Zoom number is 410-011-2362.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Quick question.
Yes, yeah, Lynn.
I'm just really interested in what I've worked with young women for a number of years and pregnant teenagers, and I'm very interested in what his wife is doing with the young women as well as what he's doing with the young men. Could we have her come on and speak to us through Zoom?
I'm sure she would. I'll invite Crystal and we'll get that set up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Alan, can you give the number again or put it
yes.
in, please?
Yeah, I'll give you the number. 410-011-2362. 011-2362.
What time is it, Alan?
10 to noon
Oh, okay.
on Saturdays. And, you know, like if you decide, if you're like, well, I can't get on till 11, that's cool. Just, you know, jump on at 11. You got 20 minutes to listen in, you know.
It is really a great experience.
Yes,
We did it one Saturday morning. Kareem, you were awesome. And the kids were just amazing, one after another, just telling their stories and what they wanted to do. And
Yeah.
really great to be there.
I'm glad you guys were able to join. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love it.
All
You
right,
guys
well,
take care, okay.
appreciate it greatly. And thanks everyone for joining in. And
Thank you so much.
Thanks, JAT.
See you guys soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it, man.
Alan, thank you for leading us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Very welcome. We'll let you know when Crystal can join us, and I'm glad everyone was able to tune in.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
Right.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Night.
night.